Imagine this for a second. You're walking down a busy city street, cars honking, people rushing, the chaos of life swirling all around you, and in the middle of that chaos, one split second is all it takes to decide whether someone lives or dies. That's exactly where our story begins, with a woman named Alana, a woman who had seen her share of struggles, heartbreaks, and quiet battles that no one else ever seemed to notice. Yet somehow she still carried herself with the strength that turned heads, even if no one ever said it out loud. She wasn't rich, she wasn't famous, and she didn't own a big house or wear shiny clothes. What she did have, though, was a heart so full of compassion that even when life gave her reasons to be bitter, she chose to be kind. On this particular day, Alana had just finished her long shift at the diner where she worked, her feet aching, her hair pulled back in a tired bun, her uniform stained with coffee and syrup, but her smile still intact because smiling had become her way of surviving. She walked down the sidewalk, holding a brown paper bag with her dinner, a simple sandwich and apple she could barely afford but was grateful for, and she was lost in thought about how she would pay her overdue rent when something caught her attention. Ahead of her, she saw a little girl, no older than 7, skipping happily near the curb, her pink backpack bouncing behind her, her tiny braids swinging in rhythm with her joy, while her mother, distracted by her phone, lagged a few steps behind. Alana's instincts immediately told her to watch, because she knew how quickly children could dart into danger. And sure enough, in the blink of an eye, the little girl's ball slipped from her hands, rolled off the curb, and bounced onto the street just as the light turned green and an SUV came barreling forward, its tires screeching against the asphalt. Time froze. The girl, too young to understand the danger, chased after the ball with innocent determination, stepping directly into the path of the oncoming vehicle. Gasps filled the air from nearby pedestrians, but none moved fast enough, none except Alana. Without a second thought, without weighing the risk, Alana dropped her paper bag, her sandwich spilling onto the dirty sidewalk, and sprinted forward with every ounce of energy her tired body could muster. She lunged, scooping the little girl into her arms just as the SUV's horn blared, and she rolled them both onto the sidewalk, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst. The driver swerved and slammed the brakes, missing them by inches, the smell of burnt rubber filling the air, the crowd erupting in shocked murmurs and relieved sighs. The little girl clung to Alana's neck, trembling, her small voice whispering, "Thank you." While her eyes filled with tears, Alana stroked her back gently, whispering, "You're safe now, baby, you're safe," though her own hands were shaking. The child's mother dropped her phone and rushed over, her face pale as she scooped her daughter into her arms, crying and apologizing, thanking Alana over and over. People started to gather, some clapping, some recording the moment on their phones, but Alana didn't care about attention. She didn't even care that her dinner was ruined on the ground. All she cared about was the fact that this little girl was alive, breathing, her small heartbeat still strong against her chest. What Alana didn't know, what she couldn't possibly know, was that standing across the street, hidden behind the tinted window of a sleek black town car, a man had witnessed the entire thing. His name was Richard Calloway, a name that echoed in boardrooms, on television, and in business magazines. He was one of the wealthiest men in the city, a billionaire who built his empire from the ground up. But what most people didn't know was that his wealth had come at a cost. He had lost his wife years ago, leaving him a single father to his only daughter, the very same little girl Alana had just saved. Richard had sent his driver to pick her up from her mother's for the weekend, and though the plan was simple, he had arrived early, wanting to surprise her, only to arrive just in time to see his daughter nearly killed. His heart had dropped to the pit of his stomach, his breath stolen, his entire world teetering on the edge of destruction in that one moment. And then he saw of an eye this woman who risked everything without hesitation, who saved his daughter like she was her own. Richard's eyes filled with tears he hadn't shed in years, and something stirred deep inside him, something beyond gratitude, something like awe. But Alana had no idea who he was. No idea the man watching her could change her life forever. She simply brushed the dirt from her jeans, picked up the ruined sandwich bag with a sigh, and with a soft smile at the little girl, whispered, "Stay safe, sweetheart," before turning to walk away, disappearing into the crowd as if she hadn't just been a hero. The little girl, still crying in her mother's arms, pointed toward Alana and whispered to her mother, "She saved me. She's my angel." And those words echoed in Richard's mind like a bell he couldn't unhear. "She's my angel." For the rest of the evening, Richard couldn't stop thinking about the woman who saved his daughter's life and then walked away like it was nothing. He instructed his driver to follow her discreetly, to see where she went, because he needed to know who she was, needed to find a way to thank her, to repay her, to understand why someone with so little would risk everything for a stranger. And as Alana trudged back to her small apartment that night, unaware of the powerful eyes watching her every move, she had no idea her life was about to change forever. The act of selflessness she thought would be forgotten by tomorrow would set into motion a chain of events that would alter her destiny in ways she never imagined. This was only the beginning of the moment where two worlds collided, one of wealth and privilege, the other of struggle and sacrifice, tied together by a single act of courage. And as this story unfolds, you'll see just how far one act of kindness can ripple through lives, changing not just one future, but many. So stick around, because you don't want to miss what happens next. And if this moment already has your heart racing, the night after the rescue was like any other for Alana, at least on the surface. She returned to her small, dimly lit apartment where the wallpaper peeled in the corners and the faucet dripped with the steady rhythm she had long stopped noticing. She placed her ruined sandwich in the trash, washed her hands, and sat quietly at the small table by the window where she usually ate her dinner. But tonight, the hunger in her stomach was replaced by a strange fullness in her chest. She replayed the day's events over and over, the look of terror on the little girl's face, the way her tiny arms wrapped tightly around her neck, the mother's tearful gratitude. Alana smiled faintly, whispering to herself, "She's safe. That's all that matters." She had no idea that just blocks away, in one of the tallest penthouse suites in the city, Richard Calloway sat in his sleek leather chair, staring out at the skyline with his daughter asleep beside him, clutching her stuffed bear, her cheeks still stained from the tears she had cried earlier. Richard had built skyscrapers, funded hospitals, and influenced politicians, but nothing in his life mattered more than that little girl breathing peacefully at his side. And tonight he owed her life to a stranger whose name he didn't even know. He turned to his assistant, who had spent the last few hours gathering information, and when she handed him a thin folder, his eyes scanned the papers, reading details about Alana's life, her work at the diner, her late nights at community college trying to finish her degree, her overdue bills, her eviction notices stacked on the counter. Richard's chest tightened as he realized how much she had sacrificed just to stay afloat. "How does someone like her," he whispered, "give so much when she has so little?" He knew he had to meet her, not just to thank her, but because something about her stirred feelings he hadn't felt in years, feelings he thought had died with his wife. The next morning, Alana woke early, her alarm clock buzzing in her small apartment, and she tied her apron around her waist as she headed back to the diner. Life went on, as it always did. The morning crowd filled the booths of businessmen in suits, construction workers with dusty boots, mothers with restless tattle set, and Alana greeted them all with the same warm smile she always wore. But she didn't notice the sleek black car parked across the street, or the man inside watching her every move. Richard had decided to come himself. He walked into the diner quietly, dressed in a simple button-down shirt, his expensive watch hidden under his sleeve, because he didn't want to be recognized as the billionaire from the magazines. He wanted to see her as she truly was, without the filter of who he was. And there she was, moving gracefully from table to table, balancing trays of food, remembering everyone's orders with ease, offering refills with genuine kindness. She didn't notice him at first, but when she finally approached his table, she smiled politely and asked, "What can I get you this morning?" Her voice was gentle, her eyes tired but kind, and for a moment Richard forgot how to speak. He finally managed to order a simple cup of coffee, and as she poured it, he studied her face, realizing she was even more remarkable up close than from a distance. He wanted to tell her everything, that she had saved his daughter, that she had changed his life, yeah, but he couldn't bring himself to do me a favor.